Hello world, the United States has announced new rules effectively banning sales of hacking software and equipment to certain countries. A 65-page document filled with jargon explains the new changes, but will the new export rules make a real-world difference to the numerous human rights abuses perpetrated with hacking tools, or is this announcement merely a token gesture meant to appease you and I in the wake of the drama surrounding NSO Group's Pegasus Spyware being used for nefarious means, and news of NSA hackers recently being caught helping the UAE hack political activists? Make your mind up now, and at the end of the video leave a comment letting me know if you were right. So up until now, it's been perfectly legal to do business with authoritarian countries. The law has taken a hell of a lot of time to catch up, in particular because the US has a large cyber industry, and so it's important America doesn't damage it, whilst at the same time implementing some meaningful restrictions on selling hacking tools to autocracies. As such, the new rules have been in the works for years. The document, published by the Department of Commerce, uses the term intrusion software to refer to hacking tools, and I'm afraid the whole thing is written in legal speak jargon, so for my interpretation of the changes, I've had to lean on other sources, which I will of course link below. The rules are patchy at best. I can't understand how any of this will make a real-world difference in the slightest. Let's take one example. An American company would not be able to sell intrusion software to a country under restrictions like Saudi Arabia, unless they had an export license to do so, but licenses are typically hard to get, so we'll put that to one side. But they could sell intrusion software to a non-government company within Saudi Arabia if the software would only be used for defensive purposes like penetration testing. The problem being, there's no way to ascertain if said software would only be used for defensive purposes, because defensive software is, for all intents and purposes, offensive software but only used to test the security of a company's own network, as opposed to using it to test the security of political activists, only to cut them up into little pieces. Allegedly. And so, I don't see why a country that really wanted its hands on certain software couldn't just create a fake company, a shell company if you will, and then buy the software through that company and proceed to use it for nefarious purposes. That being said, there are two countries which will require a license to export to if a company wants to ship any intrusion software to them for any reason. Those two being China and Russia. No surprises there. Another reason these rules will likely have little impact is the fact that a lot of intrusion tools are open source and freely available on GitHub. There has even been some talk that GitHub may have to start geo-blocking access to some repositories from IPs in certain countries, because VPNs totally aren't a thing. Also, cybercrime gangs and even state-backed hackers often use legitimate intrusion software which has been leaked or cracked. The best example of this is Cobalt Strike. It's a legitimate pen-testing toolkit used by white hats to audit networks. It's developed and sold by the American company Help Systems. However, over the past couple of years it's had its source code leaked and shared widely online. And because Cobalt Strike is actually a solid piece of kit, it's become an industry standard tool used by bad actors. Even the Russian GRU hacking team have been observed using it, as well as the North Korean cyber espionage group. And so, whilst Cobalt Strike may be a perfect example of where these new rules would apply, it wouldn't make a scrap of difference. This is kind of reminiscent of the export restrictions on RSA encryption back in the 90s. Back in 98, the US restricted the export of encryption over 40 bits due to matters of national security. At the time, a lot of people felt this was kinda dumb, so they had t-shirts made with the RSA encryption algorithm printed on it in order to protest the restrictions. These t-shirts were legally classed as munitions and couldn't be exported or even shown to foreigners. The most prominent example in the present day of intrusion software being sold for profit to authoritarian regimes is undoubtedly NSO Group's Pegasus Spyware. I made a video on it recently when the new leaks were published. I highly recommend you go and watch that video. The capabilities of the Pegasus Spyware are legitimately scary, and the allegations of how the spyware has been used in human rights abuses is rather shocking. However, Pegasus is developed and sold by an Israeli company, and so these new rules, which come into force 3 months from now, will have absolutely no effect on their business whatsoever. There doesn't seem to be much anger, if at all, regarding any restrictions the new rules will have on security researchers. The new restrictions seem to have been very carefully written so as to not impede the activity of white hats. This video is sponsored by Roboform. The easiest thing you can do to level up your security is use a password manager. Roboform keeps your passwords encrypted until you need them, and notifies you if any of your passwords have been included in a data breach, helping you stay secure. Roboform is one of the OGest password managers. They've been around since the 90s. I also use them myself. Use the link in the description to grab 30% off an annual subscription, bringing it to just $16, and there's a 30-day refund policy if you aren't happy with Roboform for any reason. If you enjoy this kind of video, make sure to help me out by fondling the like button for the YouTube AI, as well as turning on those sub notifications. If you want to see what goes on behind the scenes, make sure to follow me on the Instagrams. I'm @Jonty, I will of course link it in the description. And if you're looking for something to watch next, go check out my previous video on how a cybercrime gang's plot to trick ethical hackers into doing evil was exposed. As always, sources will be linked in the video description. Stay tuned for more hacking videos, and have a good one.